This is a tutorial for the planar tracking tool in Nuke X. So planar tracking allows us to replace a flat area in a sequence. In this case, we're going to replace the side of this truck, the artwork on the side of this truck. So it changes perspective. The camera moves around, wobbles about all over the place. There's a woman in the foreground who would interfere with tracking points, but you'll see that the planar tracker can deal with this really effectively. So here's some artwork. We're going to put it into the truck side, and it's going to go in there. So first of all, we got this footage here. So this footage is an HD sequence, and it's free to download for commercial and educational purposes from the Hollywood Camera Work website. There's a download section, there's a tracking plate section, and in there's lots of footage which you can download. It's right at the bottom, I think. Yeah, this one here. So 300 megabyte download and 188 frames. Press R, read this in. A PNG sequence. 1280 by 1080, I think. Possibly it might be anamorphic footage as well. But, so we hit S to get the settings, and we're going to change the project settings to the same resolution as our footage, because this will mean that any roto nodes and other things that we make will be in the same resolution, which is kind of important for this. So if you hit the tab and find a planar tracker, the planar tracker, it's a roto tool. Zoom in on the panel, choose a frame like where it's not covered up, and then go to the Bezier tool, and we're going to make some points with no curves or soft edges, just sharp points in the major corners. It doesn't have to be just 4 points. We have 2 points in the upper right corner, but we'll make a straight line straight across the wheel arch for now and join them back up. So there's 5 points in this shape. We just zoom in, and we'll just go to select all and tweak those points so that they're more accurate. They follow those lines dead straight. That's the select all on the points there. Have a look. So line all those up neatly. We don't want to see thin white lines showing through. We've got a new artwork in. So that's made a shape, a Bezier shape, which is highlighted in orange on the right there. Before we track this though, we need to deal with the woman in the foreground there. So she would interfere with the tracking point, especially the bottom two, which she crosses over. So what we need to do is to make a garbage mat. So if you go up here and click down to add an extra layer, we can build an extra one there, and that puts it in just before the one we made. Allows us to make a new shape, which will be a garbage mat. So go to Bezier again, and just making a simple shape around the woman, maybe 10 points. It doesn't need many more. They don't need to be smoothed. They just need to make sure that they're outside of her outline all the way around. You don't need to go right to the bottom, because that part doesn't actually intersect with the plane that we're in. So sort of jumping 20 frames ahead or so each time, we'll keyframe that across the sequence. The frame advance here can be edited to 20 or 10 or whatever number you need. So I'll put in a 20 there. We're just jumping 20 at a time, tweaking the points, the Bezier curve as we go round, just to keep it outside of her outline. This will tell the shape and the trackers to ignore anything inside this garbage mat, and that way it will keep the integrity of the shape even when it disappears behind her. So carefully going through to the end of the sequence, just making sure that she's inside that garbage mat area. Once the edges of the garbage mat go past the rectangle in the truck, you don't need to worry about them too much. But ones which are still, the areas of her that still overlap it, you need to make sure they stay outside. Just doing the last few now, towards the end of the sequence. And that's the last one. We don't need the first few frames, it doesn't matter, she's not in front of it, so as long as they're outside of that box, it's okay. We just play through now and just double check that it's actually covered her effectively, and patch over her all the way through. Or any part of her poking out of that garbage mat, or it could interfere. There's a few points here where I need to tweak them. But generally a very quick mat to make. Of course, later on we will need to make a very accurate roto shape for the woman, which will take a lot longer, but I did that already, so we can skip that stage, but I will cover it, just the beginning of it, and show you how that was done as well. But for this tracking, we just need a rough garbage mat. So we got that. We need to go back and select the Bezier shape, the first Bezier shape we made, and we can track from around frame 50 maybe. We'll set off the tracking and get that done. So it's just moving through the frames now, and as you can see, it's got really good corners, and even the corners which are inside the woman's garbage mat are keeping good straight lines. Her head went right over that corner and it locked on the whole way through, so it's really good. Okay, that's the forward frames done, and I go back to frame 50 or wherever I started, and we'll just track backwards from that point as well to the beginning. It should be a lot simpler. It's not obscured at all, so you shouldn't have any trouble with those. Okay, so I had a full set of tracking points now. Play that through, just have a look. You can see, very good track. Shape is kept faithful right through, even though the woman went over the top of the tracking points. So next we go up here, go to the display planar surface. This brings in a planar surface, which is locked onto the points, but comes in by default as just a rectangle. So that needs to go to the deform plane, which is the next button along. We can just corner pin that planar shape to match the perspective of the shape that we've tracked. So just with that planar distort button toggled, grab the corners of the plane and line them up in the perspective. There we can see it, following the tracking points. Next button along shows that we'll replace that plane with a grid in case we need to double check that. We can have a really good look at the lion's perspective looking at this grid. This job object just to help us visualize if we've got our perspective and our tracking correct. It looks fine, so we'll turn it off again. Okay, so we need to match that plane with our artwork, so we need to do some preparation on the artwork next. to get that into that plane position. Our artwork is the simple JPEG with no alpha channels. We need to fix that. It's also going to be in the most likely a different resolution to our footage. So you can see that our picture is actually slightly smaller and in a different format as well. So we need to sort of address that. So you hit the tab and go to a reformat. It'll automatically, because we put our settings to the same resolution as the truck footage, it reformats it to that format, which is what we want. We switched do the black outside because we have that distortion around the edges where it stretches the edges of the picture to fit the new format. And the next thing we need to do is give it an alpha channel. So we put in a shuffle, we can then switch off the alpha on that side and put in a solid white alpha by pressing the white box. It's now given our JPEG picture, which was an RGB, turned it into an RGBA with a solid alpha channel, so we can actually stick it over in the comp. We can comp it over now with an alpha channel, so that's great. The next thing is we put in a corner pin 2D. So we're going to now match the corner pinning. We're going to match the perspective of the artwork, but because our image has this sort of letterbox, we need to move the corner pins themselves to the edge of the artwork. So we can go to the From tab, the corner pin, and if we move it, we see it distorts the image. So what we do is we'll just disable the corner pin view whilst we do this. So hitting D, it's disabled, and then go to in the From tab, we just move those corner pins to the edge of the image from the actual corners where they are, which will just leave gaps. So we really want to distort the image area itself. So now we've moved those across, you can turn off the disable, and you see it's sort of stretched it out to the actual format that we're working with, and the corner pins are in the actual corners now. The next thing to do is to actually pin those corners to the correct perspective. So we need to be going over and viewing our footage again. So switch the viewer back to the other side of the comp, background of the comp. We're going to make this tab up here will make a new node from the tracker node, which will be used to distort to track the artwork. So we need to make sure we've selected the actual shape that we've tracked, and then hit the corner pin relative button, and it makes this new node called corner pin relative. This node is going to be attached to the other side of the tree. You just overlay the artwork over the background first of all. Sorry, that was the nodes are the wrong way around. This is more correct. So now the artwork is over the background rather than the other way around, which is what came by default. So we can then, in the 2D corner pin, we'll match the perspective of that panel. So we're still looking at the yellow rectangle is the plane from the planar tracking. So we can just match that with the 4 points in the 2D corner pin. Zoom in again and just get it as accurate as possible. So this is now making a sort of static corner pin of the artwork in the right position at a reference frame. And then the node which we made is going to go in before that. So that now, as well as corner pinning it, we've also got all of the tracking information. So as we scroll through, we see it's translated the tracking information from the planar tracker to the 2D corner pin, which wasn't moving, and it follows, the artwork follows along faithfully. We can play that back and we can see it's stuck it on there firmly, and it's very good. So there's still a few things obviously we need to deal with, but that's the planar tracking part of the project in place now, which is great. We will revisit it slightly for a few things like motion blur, but the next part will be to refine that shape, because it's just a big rectangle pasted over everything at the moment. If we look at the original footage, we see there's a wheel arch there which sort of goes up into the image, so we need to address that. Put something in, and also up in that corner it was slightly cropped, so we need to lose that corner of the artwork to make it match. And then of course we'll have to deal with the woman after that as well. Make sure that she appears over the artwork and not behind it. So starting with these corners, we'll just move these about a bit so we can fit in a few more functions, which will remove the corner and the wheel arch. So here we're going to put in a roto shape to take off those two parts. Make a new roto. Go to Bezier, and we'll just do a simple little triangle up in the corner there to cut that corner off. And pressing M will merge that roto shape into the artwork layer. For the moment, it's added a triangle. We want it to remove one, really. So we just switch the merge function to a minus function, and there we see it's taken off that corner. When we look at the artwork, we can see that corner is now chopped off, not very accurately, so we sort of need to now, looking at this view, zoomed in, we'll edit that triangle. We just need to put a pre-mult at the end there so that it actually multiplies it with its mask. You see it's not quite straight, so just pulling the keys of the roto shape a little bit to match more neatly. Looks good. So just going back to the roto shape now, you see we've made this one corner piece, so we're going to make a new one. We just go to make a new roto spline. It will automatically make a second shape, just another 4 points. The wheel arch there, we know it's a sort of rectangular shape. I'm going to guess it to begin with, and then we'll go to the other view. We need to just get it to a point where she's not in front of it, and then we'll tweak those 4 points from here, get it accurately onto the wheel arch. So this shape will change somewhat over the course of the sequence, so we'll need to put in some keyframes for this shape, and it's just moving 4 points, so it shouldn't take very long. That's about right at that point, so we'll just scrub through the sequence in a few places. So going backwards to begin with, looks okay. Jumping forwards, it's behind the woman, so that doesn't matter, but then it comes out, it's all wrong a bit, so we need to move some keys here. just moving them back in so they're there, following the three lines of that black wheel arch shape. Another key near the end. No, not necessary. Okay, oh, some here. We'll just make a few more keys to try and keep all of that in. There's another possible method to do this, where you could make a luma key of the wheel arch area, as it's quite dark on a pale background. I'm not sure it's necessarily quicker. It might be in some cases, but this seems like it more or less works. A couple more keys maybe here. It's fairly quick to do just with the roto shapes. Just scrubbing through a few more frames just to double check it's still staying in the right place. It looks small tweak here and there, here and there. This is all behind her, but just checking when it passes out. The other side, it's all good. So that shape's done. So yeah, these two rotor splines are just making the overall plane shape a little bit more interesting, a bit more faithful to it. They're sorted now. So the next thing will be to rotor spline the woman herself. And this has to be very accurate because she's got a dark top on against a light background, so anywhere that the rotor spline comes away from her, it's going to show up a bright line. So we do need to rotor spline her very carefully. And so rotoscoping is a sort of skill in itself. When the camera moves this much, there's no two ways about it. You have to put in lots of keyframes. And we'll break down the woman's form into some simpler shapes. So we'll probably use several rotor splines shapes to make the body. So I put one rotor shape in here, a new one. We'll make a Bezier shape to start cutting her out. We just go find a frame, a fairly average frame of her form. And we're just going to carefully go around, first of all, her body, her shoulders, and her collar and neck will be one shape. We're just ignoring her head for now. You kind of have to sort of see your body as a series of simple shapes if possible. So I'm just dividing her torso as one shape for now, and I'll do her head and her ears separately because they sort of stick out from her head. So the main part of her body is one fairly simple shape like this. Her head and hair is another one, and then do her ears as either one or two extra splines as well, stuck on top of that. Okay, so very accurately around the edges, zoomed right in, making sure we're not cutting either into her top or leaving a rim at the outside. And my frame advance is just set to 5 frames, or maybe even less, necessary 2 or 3 frames. You have to go through and accurately tweak those points at very regular intervals. Okay, so I just cut out there to the splines which I made earlier. So I finished all 3 of them. It took well over an hour to make all 3 of these shapes. So I've got one for her head here. The second shape is her head and ponytail. You can see the outline there and her head, and that's sort of following on fairly faithfully. Oops, let's see, missed 1 or 2, so you really have to scrub back and forth quite carefully, or do even a test comp on a plain background colour if you're not sure, something that will already stand out so you can really see if you've got it accurately or not. So just tweak any frames that are still slightly out. There's a few more there, not too. Okay, my third shape was both ears cut out, joined together in one shape. A bit complicated shape because she's got these earrings as well. So there's the 3 shapes. So there's with the alpha switched on, just to switch to A. 1, 2, 3. I'll select them all and press M. That will merge them together so we can see them all together. So, the 3 shapes over each other. So we're looking at the one with the ears for now. Okay, and that's merged into the main sequence, but it's not looking quite right at the moment. You need to change the merge node to the right one. At the moment it looks like it's adding 2 of them or something. The merge node, that doesn't look right either, so it looks like it's combined my roto shapes with the background shape. Not quite sure why I don't have the right merge node, or just investigating, looking up the tree. There's something going in. I accidentally plugged in something into one of my alpha channels, so that was the problem probably. Yes, that's it. So here we go. So this is now deducted the alphas, the 3 alpha channels, the rotor spline of the woman from the. That's still not quite right. That shouldn't be looking like that. It should be this alpha channel with the woman deducted from it. At the moment it's the opposite. Just switch to minus. Yes. Right. Okay. So it's the minus function in the merge. Is actually taking that off. So now you can see her outline. So it'll only let the artwork through in the white area there, which is exactly what we want. If we go and have a look, switch from alpha to picture. Oops, sorry, this. Yes. So here we can see our artwork has been cut out and put behind the woman. Well, she's been cut out and put in front of it. That's quite a good result. So there are further amendments we can make to this. Obviously, where our rotor spline goes around there, it's very sharp. So we can put in a blur by tabbing B and put in a blur, and then maybe just crank that up to 1 or 2, so we've got a slightly blurry edge. We can further put a little bit of blur into these things by going through the roto shapes which make the woman and turning on the motion blur button. So in each Bezier shape there's a motion blur button, so if the shape moves a lot from one frame to another, it will blur it more or less depending on how far it moves from one frame to the next. That gives quite a nice realistic motion effect, which we do have in our footage, so it matches with that. Makes a much more subtle edge to the rotor splines than the rather cut out, sharp, unblurred. Here you can see the head moving upwards, so it blurs slightly in the vertical plane. Turn it off, on, see that slight blur? That's going to make all the difference. Just do it to the ears as well, so everything matches. And then looking down our footage, and yeah, we've got a much more subtle edge around her now. So that's a good improvement to make. The motion blur is in all of the footage as well, except at the moment our actual artwork which we've added in, which doesn't have any blur, so that looks a little bit stuck on because it's not matching him. So that can also be blurred. And it's also looking a bit flat in colour, so before we blur it, we'll just put a grade node on it. Now press G, tab G, just right at the start of that tree. So I'm going to darken it down by just dropping the lift and the gain or something like that. Darken down the artwork slightly so that it's on the slightly darker side of that truck, so pure white isn't ideal, so we're just going to darken it slightly. And then we'll put in the mask of that grade, we'll put in a roto shape, a nice large ellipse. And there you can see it's just sort of darkened to the top left corner. And then we turn the feathering up. The maximum on the slider isn't enough, so we'll just dial in maybe 200 or 300. So it's a really soft blur. So now it's just a sort of a shadow in the top left corner, shading that side of the truck a bit. Then we can turn it off, on, off. We can see what that's done. That's probably made it look a bit more natural. Just checking, off, on, yeah. Just darkened it down a little bit so it doesn't feel quite so flat. Just gonna, it was a little bit too dark, so maybe we'll take the mix level to 80% or something like that. That's better. Not quite so dark. Just a subtle shadow on it. So if we go now to our the tracking node that we put into this artwork from the planar tracker, we have a motion blur setting in here. So we can turn on a motion blur there so that the artwork actually blurs too. Which is important because the other lines around the truck are motion blur, and now you can see it with the motion blur on. It's quite nice. We do need to make sure that motion blur is set to the center setting. We'll just test it. We'll just see if that looks okay. Just in the node, we need to set the motion blur to central. This will mean it will blur it both sides, either side in time. The default setting, it tends to make it look as if it's lagging behind one frame. All of the artwork will feel as if it's slightly out of time, but as it's blurring just the frames before or after, I'm not sure which, rather than if you set it to central, it blurs frames either side. So if there is a lot of dramatic movement like we do have in this scene, the motion blur will center it and it will make it feel more like it's locked on and better. So it's kind of important, that bit. We're just going to render that now. It slows down the render quite a lot putting the motion blur on, but it really does improve the quality of it. So here is our finished render. Just jumped ahead and went to a finished render. So yeah, this is quite a good result. Planar tracker is quite a good, powerful 2D tracker in Nuke X. Thanks for watching.